And our first guest as we feature some of the Cowboy men's basketball staff is Associate Head Coach James Miller. And let's just start with this. When you started to find out that it might be a possibility to come to Oklahoma State, what was it that got your attention that made you think, okay, this might be something I want to do?
Well, I've worked in the region before, and I know the history of Oklahoma State and the type of teams and talent that have come through Stillwater. So that excited me. And then, Coach Lutz and I are really good friends. We've been really good friends for about 10 plus years now. And so when we talked about it, some of the things that he said to me really excited me about trying to work with him.
Yeah.
That was a challenge that I thought would be a lot of fun.
How did you get to know Coach Lutz? How did that happen?
So I was a head junior college coach, New Mexico Junior College, and he recruited a couple of our guys. He was at Creighton at the time as an assistant. And then we just stayed in touch over the course of the last, like I said, 10, 11 years, bounced things off each other and just have become really good friends.
Yeah, and you had one of our former Cowboys that played on an NCAA tournament team, Jeff Newberry.
Yeah,
so you had him at JUCO, didn't you?
I did, yeah. I had Newberry. He played for us his sophomore year and was an All-American for us at New Mexico Junior College, and I know he had a pretty solid career here. So he's still a Cowboy. I mean, 2 days ago he asked me, hey, send me a backpack.
So, how about that?
Yeah, he still likes orange and black for sure.
Yeah, part of a unique team. Many remember we had a starting backcourt of Anthony Hickey and Phil Forte and Jeff Newberry, and none of those guys were taller than 6'3", and made the NCAA tournament, which says a lot about Jeff and his teammates. So as far as influences on you from a coaching philosophy standpoint, not only X's and O's, but just how you approach your job, who influenced you the most?
Honestly, my high school coach was really influential because he just taught me what, hard work and being a solid person was about. And then I've worked for tremendous coaches. Like every single coach I've worked for has taught me something along the way. Most recently working for Chris Jans at Mississippi State for 6 years. He's influenced me a ton because he's such an elite coach. Then working for guys like Grant McCaslin and Darren Hansen at Omaha, and then even Chris Tift, who was an assistant at TCU when he was my boss at New Mexico Junior College. Like, I worked for good people and with good people along the way. So they've all influenced me. I've taken one or two things from each of them and then tried to mold it, and then obviously I'm learning a lot of new things now as well.
Yeah, so how do you feel, I mean, we know about NIL and the transfer portal. How do you feel like that's influenced how things are approached, especially on the offensive end, as far as, how do you go about doing things? How do you take rosters that evolve all the time and create offense that they can run successfully despite the fact they've never played together? How's that changed?
Well, I'll be honest with you. My whole career, I've only worked at places where we take transfers. For 20 years in college, I've only been at places where it's year-to-year build. And that's not to say we might not have a freshman or a sophomore, but it was transfer-heavy type jobs. So the adjustment hasn't been very difficult from the roster management. With a lot of people on our staff, I feel that's the background as well. Now, like you said, offensively, trying to get those guys to gel and fulfill their roles for what our team is, that's the hardest part. And that starts in the summertime. And quite frankly, when you have a complete new roster other than the holdovers, but you have a whole new staff, so you're building the foundation from the ground floor on up. You have so many adjustments, both offensively and what do we want from them, and they're trying to figure out what, and so it's really, we're starting to, in a way, figure out what roles are, which is crazy to say. So I think you have to start early in the summertime, and that comes through practice, and then, but quite frankly, you kind of have to go through the mud a little bit, and those hard times, unfortunately, kind of test you, but at the same time, that helps us figure out what we need to do and not do in order to win.
Absolutely. What has really hit you with what Coach Lutz believes philosophically? As you've worked with him, you've known him for a long time, but now you're in the office with him every day. What's really jumped out to you as something you'll take with you wherever your journey may go?
He has what I think all great coaches have, and he has the ability to hold guys accountable, but at the same time, they still know that he really cares about them and loves them. I mean, I think that's the root of what good coaches have, and I think that's always been the case over the course of 30, 40 years, right? But he holds them accountable and just the principle of hard work. And I think that, resonates with this community and Oklahoma State in general. So I think he's a perfect fit from that standpoint of what he really requires our guys to do and asks them to do. And then, when our guys do that, we usually have good success. That's part of it, right? That's coaching. So, but he's a lead at that. He really is.
So as I understand it, you were a manager at Colorado State, is that correct?
Yeah.
And so that's not uncommon. I mean, our fans remember, Doc Sadler was a manager for Coach Sutton at Arkansas, had a very successful run. There are lots and lots of guys that went down that path. So someone watching might be thinking about that. It's like, okay, I didn't play collegiately, but I'm a manager. I want to get into coaching. What advice would you give them going down that path as far as being a manager or thinking about being a manager at the major college level and then saying, hey, I want to be a big-time coach? What would you tell them?
I'd tell them to do it, because if you can become a manager, you're going to get on-the-job training at such a young age, and you're really going to have a great feel for what this really is, because people don't understand how much you have to work and how much time goes into being in a college program. They just think, hey, you show up for games and hey, we're going to play, right? That's not reality. So anybody who really thinks they might want to get into college athletics, I would definitely encourage them to do it. And then what I would tell them is be the first one in there and the last one to leave, so they really understand what that value of hard work is going to bring and what comes in with the whole job itself. It's on-the-job training, and what you do is you take a broad view of what everybody's doing, and hey, this person does a good job here, this person does a good job there, and if you can holistically kind of put that in your thoughts, and that helps build their foundation for what they're going to be as a coach or whatever they choose to do in the profession, I think it's huge. Because how many people can do that at the age of 20, 21 years old if they have a good feel for things and they really understand what it's about?
Oh, no question about that. Grew up in Colorado Springs, as I understand it.
Yeah, I'm a Colorado guy.
Yeah, and that's, hey, a lot of people in this part of the country like to spend time there, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Did you come from a sports family?
Sports family, yeah. I mean, I played sports growing up.
Your dad, your mom play? Were they big into it?
Yeah, both my dad and my mother were both big into sports. So growing up, we're just a sports family for sure. And then, played in high school, but I knew I wasn't ever going to be an NBA player. And I played football as well. I wasn't going to play in the NFL. So when I went to college, I was kind of looking for something to do and started coaching when I was in college at a high school, and then got into being a manager my last year. So I just knew I wanted to do something with sports growing up. When I went to college, first it was going to be like, hey, I want to be a sports doctor. And then that first biology class at 8 a.m. my freshman year, that didn't go so well. So I knew I wasn't going to be a doctor after that.
Understood.
So I said, okay, hey, maybe I'll be a coach. And so here we are.
So was there a moment where it just sort of hit you? It's like, you know what, this is what I really want to do. I know you mentioned your high school coach obviously played a big role in influencing you, but was that the big thing that just sort of like, was there a moment where it's like, you know what, this is it, this is what I want?
I've always taken great satisfaction out of helping people. Growing up, being a people person, and then as you get into college and you start to figure out what you want to do with your life right after college, I realized I wanted to help people. And so when I got into coaching, first I coached little kids, then I coached at a high school, and then I was a student manager. And then once I got to Colorado State as a student manager and did that role, I knew I wanted to coach in college. And so my core of who I've always wanted to be in this profession is to try to help young people, really improve their circumstances, right? Get a degree. Whether they play in the NBA or they play in Europe or they play in the G League or never play again, help them just be a better person, right? And so I think for me, that clicked for me when I first got to Colorado State and I saw what difference those people were making. I didn't know if I wanted to be a high school coach or a college coach at that time, but once I was able to help at the college, I was like, okay, this is for me.
That's Associate Head Coach James Miller on the Orange Power Podcast.